Greetings. A quick message to those who are new here. There is a part 1 to this video, and by watching it you will increase thy pleasure. So, be wise, and to the rest of you, enjoy the rest of the story.
Come, my friends, warm yourself with the fire.
Welcome back. Where did we leave off again? Oh, that's right. Paris, early 20th century. Our star, Fulcanelli, the skilled lab technician, had just witnessed at the hands of Schwaller de Lubicz the completion of the great alchemical work. What would he do now that he possessed this most powerful secret? Could he be trusted? What happens when you betray a sorcerer?
Woe to the gold makers.
It began the very day of the successful experiment and shone brightly in Fulcanelli's eyes as soon as he perceived the event beneath his savant hands. By prearrangement, this was intended to be their last meeting, and all traces of their association were to be eliminated, never to be mentioned again. The monthly stipend would cease. Fulcanelli was to leave directly. There was to be no discussion, no further conversation after the experiment. And regardless of success or failure, no subsequent meeting was envisioned. The driver was waiting, the luggage loaded. Schwaller noticed the new spark in Fulcanelli's eyes, the new power in his bearing. They parted, strangers to each other in all ways, including their interpretation of what they had made come to pass. What Schwaller had seen in Fulcanelli's eyes was the loss of equanimity, for want of spiritual preparation. It was the sorcerer's apprentice syndrome, the genie out of the bottle, Icarus flying towards the sun. Fulcanelli had a good share of Mid-Eastern materialism in his philosophical makeup, and this turned out to be insufficient background for the knowledge at hand. Schwaller's diagnosis to that effect proved correct, less than a year later when he received, in breach of their contract, a brief communication from Fulcanelli, asking for a meeting in terms of such urgency that Schwaller acquiesced. They were to meet in a suburb of Paris, in a quiet restaurant. Over a copious meal and more than one bottle of wine, Fulcanelli announced his conviction that he could no longer in good conscience withhold the information they had gleaned in their experiment the previous year. He, Fulcanelli, had continued working, and although he had not yet been able to repeat the experiment, he felt that having done it once, he would be able to do it again. It was just a matter of conditions, ambient conditions, just some detail, but with more trial and error. The fool! He was talking like a doctor from the faculty. But I interrupted, refusing to discuss such matters in a public place. I reminded him of our agreement, got up, and left. Of course he couldn't repeat the experiment. There were a great number of concurring conditions when we ran it, and I had chosen the moment very carefully. He knew nothing about all these preparations. He could only repeat the manipulations he had performed at that time, and these had so far proved insufficient for success at a different time. But no matter, he was dead set on talking about it anyway. Although I left him sitting there over his heaped plate, I did get in touch with him later, because I realized I couldn't leave the matter at that. We had another meeting here, in this house. Schwaller reasoned with him, tried to remind him that he was involved with powers that would never forgive a broken vow. The malediction went back all the way to the Pythagorean disciple who revealed the existence of the irrational in geometry and subsequently drowned in the Aegean. Schwaller tried to convince him that anything he would reveal would be degraded by eyes attuned to usefulness only, all the while suspecting that profitability might have a share in Fulcanelli's astonishing behavior. He therefore offered continued financial assistance, if only the man would come to his senses. In fact, he told him that he could make himself responsible for a cataclysm such as might destroy the planet. While the experiment in itself was perfectly useless, it did point to a non-Newtonian constitution of matter that might well be exploited with unpredictable results. This was temple knowledge for Schwaller, and definitely not meant for the multitudes. He was already sick when he came here that last time, limping somewhat and complaining of circulatory problems, and he persisted in this insane desire to come forth with whatever he thought he had understood. I reminded him again of his vow of secrecy and warned him that no good could come from breaking it. It was useless. 6 weeks later, he wrote me a line announcing a meeting he had scheduled for a limited group of adept friends. He was going to talk about our experiment. Schwaller's voice had lowered to a whisper. He wanted to tell everything. After all those years, there was still a tone of disbelief. He had gone to Paris a few days before the scheduled event, had gone straight up to Fulcanelli's apartment, and been aghast at what he found. Fulcanelli was deathly ill. Gangrene had set in on his leg, and his complexion was turning gray. He was turning black, Schwaller said almost inaudibly, all harmonics gone from the timbre of his voice. He could no longer speak. We looked at each other for a long while, and then he shook his head. I think he understood. He pointed toward a pile of papers on the bookshelf and had me look through them. I found the 6 pages of manuscript he had stolen and that we had been working with. The manuscript, I am convinced, that had brought us both to this moment. He made me understand that he wanted me to have it and that no copy existed. I put it in my pocket and left. He was dead the next morning.
Loose lips sink ships, mess around, end up in the ground. This is a common story, yeah. Breaking a vow can be very dangerous, as Fulcanelli discovered. But Schwaller wasn't the one who exacted the penalty upon him. So then, what did? From the moment he confessed his intention to break his vow of secrecy, his body, as if directly tied to the vow, began a process of silencing him. A truly mysterious and intriguing passage from Al-Kemi, hermetic, occult, political, and private aspects of R.A. Schwaller de Lubicz, written by his lone disciple, Andre Vandenbroek. If you're interested in the alchemical process, the transmutation of consciousness, you will find great value in the rest of this book. It contains within it the secret of, well, I can't say. You understand. But I can show you where to find it. There's a link in the description below. Well, we acquired a few more coins from this passage, some insights that are worth thinking about and remembering. Number 1, what is the Sorcerer's Apprentice Syndrome? It's an ages-old fairy tale interpreted as a poem by Goethe, made famous today by Disney's Fantasia. It illustrates the danger of power over wisdom and the risk of human creations getting out of control. A short summary of Goethe's poem. It begins as an old sorcerer departs his workshop, leaving his apprentice with some chores to perform. Tired of fetching water by pail, the apprentice enchants a broom to do the work for him, using magic in which he's not fully trained. The floor soon fills with water, and the apprentice realizes he doesn't know the spell to stop the broom. He decides to split the broom in two with an axe, but each of the pieces becomes the whole broom that begin working at twice the speed. At this increased pace, the room quickly floods, and when all seems lost, the old sorcerer returns and quickly breaks the spell, scolding his apprentice that only a master should invoke powerful spirits. Does this remind you of anything? Artificial intelligence? Biotechnologies? This concept seems quite applicable to the current moment. Is this why it was so important to Schwaller not to divulge temple knowledge to the masses? Let's pray that the sorcerer arrives home soon. With the second coin, we learned that similar to Fulcanelli, a Pythagorean disciple named Hippasus met a similar fate. Little is known about his life or his beliefs, but he is often credited with the discovery of the existence of irrational numbers, a discovery that shocked the Pythagoreans. He is said to have then drowned at sea, apparently as a punishment from the gods for divulging divine secrets. We're starting to see a pattern here, and I'm beginning to worry about the whole concept of this show. Number 3, Schwaller continually warned Fulcanelli, no good can come from breaking vows. And that is the truth. I have seen friendships destroyed, marriages crumble, and public officials lose their soul, all because they treated their vows with irreverence. You would think the dangers of betrayal would be obvious to all, that people would understand the importance of keeping their promises. It seems that nature has a way of reminding them. Some parting words: stay loyal, mean what you say, and think twice before breaking a sacred vow, as the invisible moral force of the universe might come for you. Or you could take Napoleon's advice, quote, the best way to keep one's word is not to give it. Join us next time as we continue this beautiful mining operation, digging through these dusty old stacks in search of her lost treasures. In the meantime, get off the sidelines and into the game and play to win.